Hey everyone, I want to give you a tutorial on how I would lay out your collage project, project 3. So mine is, I think, gonna be more of a nightmare, a little spooky. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new document, file new. 8.5 by 11. It doesn't matter whether it's vertical or horizontal. It's up to you. I'm going to do horizontal. Resolution, again, always 300 pixels per inch is print quality. So we want that set up that way. RGB is fine for the time being, and your background white is good to start. You can start any color you want, or you can start it with a pattern, like a checkerboard background. If I wanted to, I could switch that. So once I open that, I would open up my other images so that I could copy and paste what I needed from them. Or you can drag and drop like we have done in the past. In the case here, I have a lot of images to pull from, so I want to make sure that I have the ability to kind of pick and choose as I go along. So when you're in Photoshop, when you have a lot of images open, you will see that if they don't fill up right here and you don't see the one you're looking for, you'll see the double arrow. Click on the double arrow. It gives you all of your other options, and that makes it a lot more helpful. So I can go back to my original photo that I want to use for the primary image. This was part of the photo shoot that I did that was the long exposure. And this is actually one of the images I did without the long exposure. So I copied and I pasted. And copying and pasting in here, you can do copying and pasting two ways. I did it with a key command. So what I did was I went to my image, and you'll see there's the full selection area around it. So this is how this works. If I want to take the whole image, I can click, and I'm on an Apple. So PCs, you use the control key instead of the command key. So I would press Command A, select all, Control A. And then I would copy it. Control C is copy. So now I have selected and copied from this image what I want. Go to my Untitled, and then I Control V, which was paste. And what that did is it brought the image that I copied and I pasted into a brand new layer named Layer 1. Get into the habit of when you copy and paste in different images that you change the name of the layers. I know I'm going to duplicate that information all the time in every video because I think it's really important. So she's going to be the little girl lost. And then if you want to keep it easier on yourself, you can just kind of take that and then close that away. And I can go to my next image and copy and paste all of them into the collage first if I want, or you can take pieces and parts and go along. I've seen a lot of you already doing some really cool stuff. So you're kind of past this, you've got your selections, you've got that. I want to just do this all from scratch so you see that, okay? Typically, I would actually start with a background. I mean, I copied that primary image because I wanted to show you copying and pasting, right, with the key commands. But the reality is that I probably want to start with my background. And my background in this case, and again, I'm selecting all, Control A. And if you're like, Trish, I can't even deal with that. Well, okay, fine. If you want to select all, you can also go up to that top palette and select all. All your selection areas are up there too. So I could do select all, edit, copy, and then I can go into my document and edit, paste, right? Now, this is showing way too much of this image. I don't want all of this. I'm still gonna plug this in first. Is background house. And PS, this this background back here, you don't need to keep that. If you double click on it, you can just make it a new layer and delete it if you wish. So this background house, I need to select this, but I need to change its size. So free transform. So you can go under File, Edit, sorry, not File, Edit, free transform halfway down, or the one key command I would love for you to remember if you plan on ever using Photoshop again in your life, Control T. Because when you click Control T, it automatically does what you want. And from here, I can decrease its size from the corners. Don't pull from the sides unless you really want to. Corners are a little bit easier. It gives you a full range. I don't know if I'm going to use all of that or not, but there it is. And then when you're done, you need to hit enter or click OK or something along those lines so that it sets that transformation. Okay. Now I need to add some more layers. So what my next image might be, I actually want to use this eye pretty big. So I'm going to copy that and paste that. Going to select this board. So I like that as a texture too, and paste that. So now get rid of that. Get rid of that. And then I loved this cover of this book my daughter is currently reading. And I only want part of this. I don't want all of this image. So I'm just going to use my rectangular marquee tool to select that skull. I want the skull. So again, select that area, copy it, and paste it. And you'll see now I have a bunch of layers. I did that really fast. All right, let me catch up to myself, right? So let me name these. Skull. And maybe I'll move the skull too, get out of my way. Move it over there. And you'll see in the palette, layers palette, you see all those changes happening. That's what's nice about this. You see that it's going over there. And then this board, for instance. And then when I select the object, right, you see how my layer changes? That's another way to make that easier too. So I took a piece this is paneling board. Now, remember, this is some of the stuff that I haven't really seen yet from you, is using textures and layers within each of these photos that you're taking. So we have adjustment layers, and we talked about that in week 3 video. So I'm not gonna go crazy deep into that, but there's some other effects that we can do down in this layers palette, especially in this section that says normal. We're not gonna play with normal today. We're gonna do all sorts of different things and mess with opacity of each layer, because doing that creates a whole different effect, okay? That's what I'm really excited for today. So I'm just gonna, again, do my housekeeping, do my digital housekeeping, and name my files. Now, again, this project requires that you take 5 photos. You need to take them. Can't pull them from your artwork, can't pull them from the internet. You need to use your own images that you shot. Now, if you notice, I am using a book cover. I took that photo though, okay? So if you need to take pictures of your own artwork or things like that, you can, and you can use them, but they need to be your own photos, okay? So 5 photos. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 already. I do have some more stuff that I want to pull in. So I think I have 1 more. No, 2, because I want this bug that I caught. And you see, you can't even really see where the fly is because it's under the paneling, but there it is. Close that. And, oh, I still need my, hold on here for a second. Maybe it was under downloads. Recent? Nope. Let's see. I don't remember the name of the file. This is what happens. Ah, there it is. Okay, that's the one. Okay, so now I've got all my parts and my pieces ready to go. And so this is sort of almost like a loose concept here. The idea of like a little Red Riding Hood, except no one is worried about this little Red Riding Hood. She is just fine. You need to be worried about her hurting you or like something else. So that's sort of the vibe I'm going for. That's how that's going. All right. So now I've got all my parts and my pieces. You don't have to do it this way. This is just I'm showing you all of your options, okay? And right now, I don't want to look at little girl lost. She needs to be up top though, right? She needs to be in the foreground. So I'm just gonna hide her for right now. And I kind of want to play with the skull, but yet not yet. So we're gonna hide those things. What I need to do is sort of get my background in order, okay? And what I mean by that is kind of taking and adding and subtracting some of these layers. So I like this paneling and board and I want to lay it over the background. I also want to make this eye something a little fancier. So we're going to hide the eye for a minute, take the paneling and board. Now, I am going to put the warning out right now. What I am doing is I'm increasing the size of an image that is probably a little too small for what I'm doing, which means it could get pixelated or get funky. In this case, I don't mind so much because I'm going to use it at such a percentage of its value, you're not going to notice the pixelization. So that's like a sort of an advanced trick. I always say, no, don't blow things up in here, right? When it comes in, it's the size it should be, no bigger. But in this case, we can tweak that a little. So again, I'm going to free transform, Control T. I'm going to increase its size. So I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to get it. I mean, essentially, I don't know if I want it that big. I could always duplicate it if I want more patterning. Like I could have it be that big and then I could duplicate it and like, you know, create a repetitive pattern or something if I want to. In this case, it might be okay to have it feel big like that. And I'll hit enter. And now this is where the cool stuff starts to happen. What I can do is I can now take this image and I can set it behind that image we're looking at, that one, or I can keep it in front of it. Now, if I keep it in front of it, I can hover through these options and you can see that the application of each of these filters is slightly different. I will get into them in a much deeper way in a minute. But what's nice is the way you can do it now is you can literally scroll through and see if any of those types of effects appeal to you. Now, just like with adjustment layers, right? Whatever is above is affecting what is below in the layers, okay? There's not really a particular way of locking this, okay? They affect each other and they affect each other in a deep way. What I mean by that is, so you saw those variations I just sort of did here. The wooden plank is in front of the cabin photo, right? The night cabin photo. Now watch what happens. Okay, you can see some of these effects are really fun. Watch what happens when I put the paneling behind the house and the cabin itself then gets those adjustments instead of the background. Do you see the big differences in effects when you go from one thing being in the front versus another thing being in the front? The other thing to consider is that this is just the effect, okay, within the layer effect. You can then change the opacity of the layer. You could drop the value of that layer, right? And then do one of these filters and it will do additional effects. So if you like that idea of that dark, wooden effect. You could do that. I could also, if I didn't want so much wood popping out, I could go to the paneling and board layer and drop its opacity, and you see how its effect is softened. You see the kind of control that's possible here. It gets exciting after a while. And these are just the layer effects that you can do, right? We already had the adjustment layers where you can tweak the color more to suit your needs and your desires for the final solution. Here, all bets are off. How would you like it to look? Because we could probably get it to look pretty darn cool. Now, I'm not going to go through every single one, but I want to show you these for a second, okay? So you've got normal. Normal applies a normal effect to a layer. Unless you change the opacity, it's going to show the image exactly as it is, how it is, why it is, where it is, okay? Dissolve, you can see subtly, because I've got double effects going on right now, you can see that when we click dissolve, dissolve takes the image, or the layer rather, that we have selected. In this case, I want to just reset this so you can see exactly what's going on. All right, background house. This is the house. And I've dropped its opacity just enough so that you can see that there's significant change, okay? So dissolve literally pecks away at the image randomly. You don't get to decide per se, it's just dissolve. And as you go up and down in the transparency opacity ratio, it can get, you know, more dissolved or less. These guys right in here affect your black, okay? Black is the focus, okay? So anywhere where there's shadow in an image, that's what's going to show through when you select darken, multiply, color burn, right? Color burn's pretty extreme. Linear burn, which is kind of a toned version, or darker color, okay? All of those affect the white. The white kind of goes away and the black pops forward, okay? So you can guess that the next set is the opposite. And you can see why this one is really popping. There's not a lot of white or light color in that cabin photo, that because it's all at night and there's the light. So you can literally see the light. Screen, color dodge. You see how these ones aren't creating great effect because they're meant for the lighter areas of a photo. So if you have a photo with a lot of light areas, this will be a totally different effect, right? If I put the board in front of or above in the layers, above the cabin, it would be a different effect like we showed before. So all of these are the ones that pull forward white, black goes away. These ones, the black comes forward and the white goes away, okay? Then we've got these guys which apply light. Now, I love a good overlay. An overlay is as close to like watermark or ghosting as you can get. So that's the one that if I want an effect and I want it subtle, that's where I will use it. And again, this one's really subtle because that barn board is so white. And then these all, again, affect the light. So you can see soft light versus the hard light. Ooh, I like the hard light now that I'm looking at that. Vivid, linear, pin, hard mix. Ooh, remind me vivid. I like vivid. Okay. Then we get into the funkier stuff, the opposites, right? Difference, right? What's the opposite color of yellow? Blue. So the blue, you know, everything flips essentially. It's complementary is what you're going to get. Exclusion, similar, effects, subtract, and divide. Then last but not least, we've got hue, saturation, color, and luminosity. If you go in, I'm not sure if I have it in there right yet, but if I don't, I'll plug it in. There's a list of what does what in particular, which is great if you want to understand it from a really deep level. But I gotta say, this can I tell you, the ability to scroll and see the preview effects, this is a big deal. I didn't have this when I was learning. Even up until a few years ago, this was not an option. So this is a pretty sweet option that you guys have. It's like you're driving a light speed train. So that is huge, okay? And this is something that will really help every one of you in your collaging, right? Because now think about it, those selected areas that you've made, you can have them be more infused into one of the other layered images, right? That's all possible. All right, so I'm going to keep going here. I've got the texture, I've got the background. Now I've got still a lot more to go. And I kind of wanted that skull to be bigger still. So let's make that bigger. And in this case, I do want to silhouette this one, but do I want to go crazy? I don't know. I might just use my eraser. Make sure it's all set. I've been messing with this quite a bit. So all of my tools are sort of off of it. And do I want it soft or hard? I don't know. It doesn't really matter for this particular project. I could make it a really hard edge, and even if it wasn't perfectly clean, it's not going to matter. It's a collage. So I'm still going to get the same vibe that I want. And again, for me, this is my personal way of doing things. If I'm going to hand erase with the erasing tool, I'll use a really big eraser, get rid of the primary stuff I want to get rid of. And then I'll go in with a smaller brush, maybe something half its size or even less than that, and clean up those edges. And again, this is something you could totally use those selection tools I taught you with, right? You could select it, but you see the colors really subtly, you know, gradating. And we all know how fun it is with those selection tools to do that sort of work. So I am okay with the shabby chic here we have going on. I want to get rid of the roof. But I want to make sure the roof is sort of clean because that's going in front of this other cabin. And so it's going to pop a little. All right, so we're getting close. Ooh, see, this happens. Always undo with Control Z or Command Z when you're on an Apple. All right, so I like that house quite a bit. Again, I want to mess with some of these layer effects because it's allowing me the ability to, ooh, I like that. But again, I don't want to just hold off. Oh, that's pretty creepy too, but I'm losing the skull effect with that one. I really do want to keep the skull popping. I do like it dark also, golly. This is what happens. You can really get through it and start playing. All right, I'll leave it at that for right now. That one, I like that one. So I still think like that. There's this section right here. It looks like somebody walking almost. All right, now let's pop in Little Girl Lost. She is going to make a big difference in this piece, but I got to position her right too. So I'm going to free transform her down to the size I need. And she's going to be pretty small. Maybe somewhere around there. Then what I can do is I can bump my opacity back up. And I'm going to make a soft brush again and kind of take out a bunch of that. Because I want the idea of her sort of walking through this area. We're actually gonna bring a copy of this image back in and use the background right behind her. But right now we're just looking to get sort of the size and shape that we need from her to get going. So I've actually pretty heavily photoshopped this image before. I like it so much I post on Instagram. But I know that doing it this way is going to allow me multiple filter types. There it is. It's pretty much what I wanted, was this idea of her being the ghost and dropping that color out of her hair and having her pop through. Now, obviously, we can't get that full effect yet with that background house the way it is. I might warp it instead of making it bigger. If I hold my shift key and I pull, it will warp the image. And actually, I don't like that because I can't see her anymore. So I'm going to keep that way, and we're going to mess with something else too. And then I've got the eyeball. I'm only using the eyeball in this one. So there's my position. And for this, I'll use my marquee, my elliptical marquee tool, and I'm going to go from the center. If you hold your option key while you pull, you can pull from the center of a circular or elliptical area. And so in this case, I'm going to select the inverse and click delete. Delete. And I've got this little soft 50 pixel feather on the eyeball. And again, I actually would like to go right above the skull, but I like the effect of it being behind the skull. And so now, there we go, we're getting in it. That's pretty fun. Here it is. I'm getting there. It's like that single eye, like Mike Wazowski. You guys ever seen Monsters, Inc.? And then the fly. Now the fly, I wanted to kind of pop it up in the house because there's not a lot of action going on up there right now. Now again, I'm planning on popping those trees back up, so we could totally kind of obscure it. Maybe I won't go crazy yet, and maybe I'll copy this again. You see why I copy it again, because there's so much good stuff going on in that background. Oh my golly. I only really want a certain amount of it though. So maybe we'll trash that and I'll do it again. Make a selection instead, not be so lazy. Here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna select this area that I want, copy that, paste that. I'm gonna name it trees because that's what we're using it for. Again, we'll bring it back to where we want it in the layout. I don't want it on her, I really don't want it on her face. So I kind of want it in the background and make that effect happen. There it is. That's what I wanted. So let's reverse. Now, here's the thing. It's hard for me to sort of see what layers what at this point. Thank God I have all these effects. But, you know, there's certain times when I might need to, hopefully, I'm like hoping for the best. I'm on the trees layer, and I kind of just want to get some of that riffraff out of the house. Maybe I took a little too much there. Back to there. But I want to get it out of the monster house. I guess more than anything. And then I also want to just hit the edge of that photo with an eraser tool, just so it blends right into that ceiling area. And then last but not least, I want to add in some of that bottom area as well. I like the darkness in here. And so I think that that would finish off that bottom pretty nicely. So we'll take that. Yeah. Where did that layer go? Bottom leaves. We are taking, see, this is a problem with some of these. You might want to lock them if you're having trouble moving them. In this case, I could very literally use my arrow key and finish that off. I'm going to overlap just slightly. You see how I'm doing that. Now I'm going to figure out, do I need to do a blending mode to get that to blend nice? It's kind of like that. I don't know if that's going to fly though. I could increase the size of this. I like that. That works. And then again, I can use my eraser, get in here, take out what I don't want. I can also drop its opacity a little. I don't know. Maybe I do need to mess with this further. Something like that could be. Well, so this is kind of where I would probably need to keep playing some more, right? I'd want to get that out of her face, so I'd erase around her. I need to work on that. That background house layer might need to get some of its edge trim too. You see how I can, I mean, that's a small brush, really big. Soften that edge a lot. I don't know. So we got to work on that a little bit, but I'm getting there to where I want to be. Now the trees, that's pretty much where I want to be. I need to mess with my fly. There's so much going on in there. I don't want to like lose it completely to the background. Could I change its color? Probably. From here, I would do, I don't know, you could do a complex selection here. You could try. You might want to do that beforehand, I think, because this is one of those ones. Let's see. We will go with an object selection tool, see how that works. All right, buddy, here's our object. This is a pretty new tool in general, the object selection tool. That's the one that's right below the lasso. I showed you quick selection. I like quick selection. It did pretty good, you see. It didn't grab the back wing though. So we need to kind of go in there, and you see the color difference is so subtle. This is one of those ones where I'm like, whatever. I guess I could do all of these selections, but in the end, it's not going to give me what I need, and I'm going to spend all that time selecting it, and I'm just going to end up grabbing the eraser tool. Now, look, the eraser tool oftentimes can give you some questionable results. The reality is, if you use a big brush to start and you work your way in, usually you can do a pretty darn good job. If you want, use the other ways that I've shown you. Those are the best ways. This is one of those ways. It's like, you can do it this way. It's definitely very old school, and it takes a bunch of your real kind of manual time. Get as close as you can. You could also sort of do this outline effect. If you do the outline right, really close, you could get away with doing an inverse, essentially. So select it all nice and tight, select the inverse, and delete all the other stuff that's around it. That is oftentimes effective. It depends on the photo, depends on the situation. All right. I'm not subjecting you guys to all this. So anyhow, there is the idea of what I'm going for. I'm gonna hide that for right now. I hope this helps. Know that when I say adjustment layers, you're gonna have 8 layers total, 5 photos are required. Adjustment layers are not necessarily what I just did, okay? Those are effects that are applied to layers that exist already. Adjustment layers are when you take an image and you, so in the case of maybe those leaves, where are they? Bottom leaves, okay. So in the case of bottom leaves, I want to achieve an effect, and this is what I taught in the week 3 video. You would use one of these, and so maybe in this case, I would want to actually, you know what I kind of want to do is I want to mess with the levels of those leaves and see if I can't push them a little bit darker. And then again, I just want it to lock to bottom leaves only. And I can really do some stuff with this, which is cool. All right. So that's a layer. That's an adjustment layer. All right. Another thing that you could do maybe with Little Girl Lost, right next to your adjustments, you have your layer mask tool, but you have right next to that is a layer style. And I can do, I want to do an outer glow on her. That's a really big outer glow. I have the effect on right now. I want it to be a lot smaller. And just affect her a little bit. Add some noise to it. It's a really subtle change, to be honest with you. It's not going to be crazy because there's so many effects going on, but it kind of gives, again, another layered effect. It kind of makes her look like she's walking in. It also gives me a notion that I've got a lot more in here that's still hiding. So I can make it bigger and do, okay, I've got so much detail work. I love it. Okay. I hope this helps. So again, if I want to finish and I want to save this, I'll do a save. You must save as a PSD file if you want to work on this ever again, or if you ever want to make a change or an adjustment, and I'm pretty certain you will, okay? So it's really important to not just save a JPEG this time, okay? Definitely save a PSD file. You're not going to submit the PSD file to me. You're going to screenshot the layers palette for me when the time comes. But just please make sure to save the PSD and save yourself a JPEG as well, okay? Have a great week. Inbox me if you need me. We have 2 more weeks on this one, so enjoy. Be well.